House has considered regenerative farming and tackling climate change, restoring nature and producing nutritious food. Mr Chairman, can I start by thanking the Backbench Committee for granting me the opportunity to debate this issue? And I'd also like to declare my interest, as I'm a Conservative Environment Network regenerative agriculture champion, whatever that may mean. But, Mr Chairman, farming is at a crossroads in the UK. This is a seminal moment, perhaps the greatest in 70 years, which offers opportunities, challenges and the chance to rethink and reform our agricultural way of life in a manner that is harmonious to producing healthy, high-standard food, reaching our climate goals and enhancing biodiversity and tackling rural issues. To start, the method in which we subsidise and support our farmers is undergoing a complete revamp. The basic payment scheme, which rewarded farmers on the basis of their landholding, is to be phased out and replaced by an entirely new scheme. This new government proposal, the Environmental Land Management Scheme, also known as ELMS, promises to be a fairer, more tailored subsidy initiative that will help British farmers produce food, while at the same time asking them to work increasingly at a landscape scale to improve biodiversity, reduce air and water pollution, protect our landscapes from environmental hazards, and adapt our agricultural ways in response to climate change. ELMS is undeniably ambitious, and what's wrong with it? At its core, it seeks to provide public money for public good. But a combination of climate change, decades of intensive farming, have had an impact on UK agriculture and our land and our environment. More frequent flood events, topsoil loss from erosion, pesticides and antibiotic resistance, and plateauing yields despite higher inputs are increasingly making farmers' jobs even more financially challenging and incurring lasting damage to our shared environment. After all, agriculture accounts for 10% of UK greenhouse gas emissions. It is in our interest to address this. British farming faces a new subsidy scheme, the need to address climate change, the requirement to upskill and retrain, the need for standards to measure carbon sequestration, as well as ensuring stability around food security. Those crossroads, that challenge, might well be described as spaghetti junction. The complexity of what we must do is huge. Over the last 2 years, since I've been elected, I've been fortunate enough to spend a great deal of time with the farmers of Totnes and South Devon. In doing so, I've noted the manner and method and the diverse ways in which many of them now farm. Some use the practices of the generations before them, a hyper-intensive farming regime, the dig for Britain mentality in which the land is worked and squeezed from every angle for every nutrient to produce food for a growing population through the use of chemicals, intensification, and where yields are a priority at all costs. Others have changed and adopted to an organic farming model. Food is no longer produced at any cost, standards are raised, chemicals reduced, and in the end, a product can display a label that denotes high quality, infallible welfare standards, and of course, a price to go with it. Premium quality for those that can afford it. Perhaps worth remembering that 9.34 million hectares of agricultural landscape in the UK, of which only 489,000 are farmed organically. Then there are those who have long recognised and understood the need to return their land entirely to a more balanced and natural state of affairs, the Rewilding Brigade, whose efforts have been so neatly captured through the work of Isabella Tree and Charlie Burrell at NEP. Returning land to its natural state and making space for nature to take over has captured the imagination of millions. This wide spectrum of farming methods all have their own pros and cons. But the focus to the UK now has shifted towards working with nature, and we must pluck what works from these methods and encourage their use through a new initiative. In recent years, a growing number of farmers have come to rethink their operations quite literally from the ground up by placing renewed emphasis on the few inches of earth beneath our feet, topsoil. If it is this topsoil that in a healthy system holds the nutrients, biodiversity and biological matter that allows life on Earth to thrive, it is no exaggeration to say that we owe our existence on this Earth to the few vital inches, and yet for decades we have been treating it, Mr Chairman, well, like dirt. I'd be delighted to.
Saying, does he agree with me that really we need to move away, there needs to be a big cultural change, moving away from high quantities of low nutritious food that people consume to lower quantities of food which is more nutritious?
Honourable gentleman, it's almost as though he's read my speech because I come on to these points, but yes, it is about improving the quality that we quality of the food that we produce from the soil that we use. And in doing so, we can meet so many of our targets, whether it is food security, environmental challenges, but also the health of the nation through the food that we produce. The farms that we are talking about are rethinking their operations according to a set of principles known as regenerative agriculture. Simply put, regenerative agriculture is producing food while restoring the land. And it consists of the following 5 principles. First, that soil should not be disturbed. Second, that soil surface should be covered. Third, that keeping living roots in the soil. Fourth, growing a diversity of crops and ending monoculture crops. And finally, fifth, bringing grazing animals back onto the land through mob stocking processes. While these 5 principles are well known within the regen community, they are not so widely recognised within the farming community. Such a method of farming moves away from the agrochemical model that relies on environmentally damaging and expensive chemicals and provides a solution to improve biodiversity, carbon sequestration of soil, food production, reduce inputs and costs, and creates a symbiotic model that is sustainable, effective and necessary. By freeing the farmer from their dependence on the chemical salesman, they are able to reduce their costs and take control of their finances. This becomes all the more prescient as the cushion of the basic payment scheme is reduced. At this point, one might wonder, if it is such a fantastic method, why all farmers across the world aren't upending their ploughs and moving to regenerative agriculture. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, like many beneficial steps, it takes time. Regenerative agriculture marries old techniques with new technology, and while it's proving successful where practiced, farmers are still requiring to take a leap of faith, both financially and educationally.
On that point, would my honourable friend I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and we have so many fantastic farmers who are practising regeneration farming right across the UK, concentrating on improving that soil health, that biodiversity and water quality. And I think of Jake Freestone, who this year won the Environmental Champion Farmer of the Year by the Farmers Weekly Awards. And I wonder if us as politicians could learn more from leaders like Jake, and would you, on this point, just congratulate Jake while you rise to your feet?
Thank you. I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. I suspect a congratulations from the Minister might mean more, but I would like to congratulate Jake Freestone, because this is exactly the sort of person that we need to be cooperating with DEFRA, to be cooperating with private organisations, to be able to inform and help and allow people to learn and upskill, something that I'm going to touch on in a second. As I was saying, Mr. Chairman, the enormous mind shift requires farmers to update and modernise their approach to farming, as well as including that financial risk. So the challenge is great, but so too are the opportunities for DEFRA. The agriculture community and the private sector have a role to play, and with a national initiative, they could have truly global results. For regenerative agriculture to make a difference, it needs to be supported and accepted by government, private sector and the agricultural community. And to achieve this, DEFRA has the opportunity to facilitate and enhance cooperation and understanding between farmers, to share practices, skills, machinery and understanding, and above all, to support farmers to do more for climate, nature and the environment. The Sustainable Farming Incentive, part of the ELM scheme, which launches from 2022, will incentivise regenerative farmers so that soil and pest management are a key point addressed. But the details at present remain somewhat opaque. Many in the agriculture community are still confused or in the dark about how the new ELM scheme will operate or practice. Businesses that include farmers, of course, all farms are businesses, need the certainty, and the sooner we can be clearer about how public money for public good actually operates, the better. DEFRA, through the ELMs, is changing the method of support after 40 years. It's not about pitching farmers against one another, but instead bringing them together and using government and private sector and farm bodies to provide the required support and action to adopt these regen principles. Perhaps a Jake Freestone policy could be adopted, and we can use him as an example. DEFRA, the Secretary of State, the Minister for Farming have constantly been clear about the need to listen to the agricultural community. Now is our opportunity to do so. There are, of course, already agricultural initiatives underway, such as Groundswell, the Real Oxford Farming Conference, Farm Ed, that are leading the national debate. But DEFRA needs to step up and lead so as to help translate those discussions into action and policy. A bottom-up approach that seeks to engage and cooperate, an action that will ensure that regenerative agriculture leads to results that will benefit producers and consumers alike, including our environment. The second point I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman, is around upskilling and training. Cooperation will play its part in delivering a new UK farming model that is fit for the 21st century. But to get there, we must also focus on how to change mindsets, update knowledge, offer retraining and training and upskilling courses. Much talk is made of the point around levelling up agenda in this Parliament, and I can think of no better example of it landing and being effective than seeing the agricultural community being offered the chance to update its practices for the government to be able to provide the necessary support. DEFRA funds have been available and are available for agricultural charities which are focused on providing support to farmers. So can I specifically ask the Minister, what steps is the government taking to encourage agricultural colleges and university courses to include soil health and regenerative practices? What opportunities are in place to help those already in farming to train, retrain or upskill? And if we can go further, I encourage the Minister to do so, because within our educational bodies there is an enormous opportunity. The third point I want to talk about is around the independent carbon assessment point. Healthier soils mean greater levels of carbon sequestration, meaning that the most effective carbon sink is not a man-made invention, but the ground beneath our feet. However, measuring and verifying soil carbon is fantastically difficult, and one that requires government involvement. As a matter of urgency, DEFRA should be considering what the standards and requirements to measure soil carbon are. The technology might not have to come from government, but the standards and the level that we wish to see can. We've committed 2.4% of GDP into research and development, and I suggest we stake our claim in this area before a myriad of straw men claiming to measure carbon sequestration are touted. I understand that through DEFRA's Natural Environment Investment Readiness Fund is proposing to develop and pilot a UK farm and soil carbon code to create market for carbon offsetting. The technology to do so is being developed already by AgriCarbon, as I understand it. So with that in mind, can I just ask the Minister, how scalable is the technology to date? What steps is DEFRA taking to set a national carbon sequestration standard? And what support are we providing for the private and public sector bodies to help create the technology required? The fourth point, and almost my final point, Mr. Chairman, much has been written in recent weeks about food giants and commodity brokers dipping their toes into the regenerative field. Nestle, Cargill, Walmart and Kellogg's have been none too shy in promoting their regenerative agricultural efforts. But as mentioned by the likes of Sustain's Vicky Hurd, we should be very wary of very large private sector multinationals claiming great green credentials while other arms of their businesses continue to pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. I'm not ruling out their efforts, but unless government can set the standards and the tools of measurement, we will likely be lobbied and led into a position that is not of our own making and is not as beneficial to our farmers who we want it to be for. We need to explore and consider how we can bring the private sector with us and how they can help and support our agricultural community. Already there are some fantastic initiatives taken by water companies to encourage environmentally friendly farming practices. For instance, the work done by Anglian Water Slug It Out campaign saw the removal of the chemical, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, metaldehyde, from watercourses and showed the positive impact that could be had between the cooperation of farmers and private enterprise, leading to a dramatic decline in water pollution. Water companies are just the example of what we can do by cooperating and ensuring private enterprises can work together. Of course, cash grants to support the purchase of machinery to move away from deep ploughing, skills and training funding, incentives to utilise fewer or less chemicals are just a few suggestions. So I might just ask on my final list of questions for the Minister, how can we encourage water companies and other businesses to take that step to cooperate with farmers and provide that support? And what consideration has been given to creating a verification system around offsetting that is fair and accurate? Mr. Chairman, I've taken up far too much time, but farming is hard. You only need to watch one episode of Clarkson's Farm to recognise that. It requires long hours, it is dangerous work, all of which are combined with a devastating prospect of not even breaking even without a subsidy. We want our farmers to be successful, to be recognised for the vital role they play as the stewards of our land, for the service they provide in ensuring good, high-quality food is produced in the UK, and as part of the answer to help tackle climate change and nature restoration. I welcome the changes announced by this government, but we now have the opportunity and the duty to do more for our farmers, to provide the clarity, to help retrain, to support and judge private sector involvement, and to create the harmonisation within the agricultural community to actually provide the results that we need. Thank you.